Hey, hey, hey. Welcome to another Out of This World compilation from rSpace. Unusual behavior from my wife. Preface. I work nights and she works a day shift. Her job is a male-dominated field and she seems to be with coworkers more frequently. There is female support staff like office jobs, parts rooms, etc. We're both in our 40s and been together since 17 years old. She only started her career in the last couple years, so a workplace relationship wouldn't have presented itself in the past. Here recently, she's been hanging out with her female coworkers after work many nights. She gets off work around 5 and isn't home until about 7 or 8. A time or two she didn't come home until the morning because she got drunk with them and slept it off there. I find that unusual because she's very responsible and doesn't usually get carried away in social situations. At that point, I'm not highly concerned. Last night I wasn't scheduled to work, so I was in bed at a normal hour. I awakened by her cell phone screen in bed at 3 a.m. I couldn't see if she was texting or browsing the net, and she wasn't being secretive with her screen like angling it away, etc. So that's probably innocuous. Then, she got up and started getting ready for work. Now, her shift starts at 8, and she wouldn't need to leave earlier than 7 if she wanted to grab a bite before going in. I asked her, "I thought your shift doesn't start until 8. She acknowledged that, but said she was going for a walk with her coworkers before work. She's a diesel mechanic, and they have uniforms at work, and she seemed more cleaned up than expected for a walk or work. Not dolled up, but yeah. She was out of the house by about 4 a.m. and would likely be to her friends by 4:30. It's still very dark and it was rainy, drizzling, and about 45 degrees out. Nobody owns a raincoat in Arizona, so it wouldn't be poor condition for a walk. Well, she drives a truck and I drive a car. So I texted her around 5 to ask if I could get the truck so I could take some things to the dump. She didn't answer. 15 minutes later, I called to ask. She said they were still out on their walk, but to just come to her work when she gets there and get it then. If not for the rain, I would have thought it a good opportunity to see if her hair is damp from a second shower. My brain works a bit differently than most, and I'm poor on social cues, etc. Am I overthinking this? Update. I confronted her by asking to see her phone. She tried to flip the script and demand my phone, so I gave it to her along with the password. I had nothing to hide. Hell, I don't even have time for meeting others. Anyways, I looked through her messages, and the one conversation I wanted to go through was conveniently missing. So I typed in the phone number and her boyfriend or whoever's name popped up. I handed her the phone and said, "I want to see the text with him." She acted incredulous, and I told her some of what I knew, that she texted him before leaving the home today and when she got back, and that I knew she was with him when she was supposedly in Vegas. She tried to act like she did not know why our phone carrier would have several pages of texting records between her and him. Since she didn't want to do anything other than storm off upstairs and retreat to the bed, I went up and told her I was packing a bag and leaving. I packed up and left. I'm sorry to hear you're going through this, OP. Trust is paramount in a relationship and it seems to be eroding here. Your suspicion wasn't baseless. It was based on changes in her behavior that made you feel uncomfortable. What struck me is how you're striving to be rational despite your pain. It's admirable. Remember, it's okay to lean on others for support, family and friends. As for the next steps, it's crucial to ensure you're legally protected and especially if you're married. Speaking to a lawyer might be beneficial. Remember, you don't have to rush into any decisions. It's okay to take time to process, to grieve, and to figure out what you want moving forward. You are more than this situation, and you will emerge stronger on the other side. Stay strong and take care, OP. Update. What a police investigator taught me about doing the confrontation. The first thing he told me was, on small crimes less than homicide, the guilty rarely confess, and even if they do, they withhold a lot of information. So even if your partner admits to a one-night moment of weakness, they won't tell you about the 6 months of regular cheating. So forget about getting a confession. By the time you're at this point, you're ready to press charges, so to speak, and you're just trying to get additional information to be used against them later. He also told me to start the confrontation with, "I know more than you think I know, so start talking. The truth is the only thing that's going to help you here. Don't let on how much you know. This is high-stakes poker, so don't show your cards." He also said that even though you're going to search his phone, expect to find nothing. It's either extremely well hidden or already deleted, unless they're just stupid. The guilty will hide their evidence in anticipation of the day the confrontation comes. What you need is to prove that the texts and call logs are missing. You see, you should be downloading the text records and calls from your service provider and familiar with the dates and times. Gaps where they didn't text the person is likely because they were with him at the time. This probably matches an absence. Remember, you want them to believe you know, but without playing out how limited your information is. rarely will you have proof of them in the act. The confrontation. Ask them for their phone. They will protest this and demand to see your phone, making similar accusations to be prepared for scrutiny yourself. As expected, my wife did this, saying, "I don't even know your password. You won't tell me." Keep in mind, the guilty fear discovery. They'll be more concerned about what you're doing with their phone than going through your phone. So observe their level of interest in finding damning info on you. My wife barely scrolled the text lists and didn't even get into the pictures, which many guys keep. She was looking at the phone in my hand as I was scrolling through innocuous texts. "See, I don't know what you think I'm doing." Then I went to the phone icon, typed in his number, and pressed the text icon. No messages. Big surprise, right? I went back to his contact and showed it to her and said, "Where's his text at?" She was like, "We don't ever talk." I called BS and told her that just last month alone she had over 900 texts with him. Where are they? She acted incredulous, but she knew that number was probably pretty accurate. She admitted to deleting them. Partial truth, right? Because they were talking about how she wanted a divorce, but she wasn't ready to tell me yet. Don't give too many details like how far back you suspect it. You can give a little to add credibility that you already know everything. Knowing how many texts helped me because it was a hard fact and irrefutable, and sent the message I wasn't lying when I said I knew things. What I said above is how the guilty act. See, the guilty fear discovery. They will dodge, deflect, etc. Even expect them to tell you where they went. But remember how much they tell you. If the details are vague and reaching, keep pressing for more information. Many lies are only minimally planned. They might be able to tell you about going to the bar with the friends, but they won't have much details like how someone almost got punched, or who won at darts, etc. Spouses will tell you about their fun night with friends voluntarily, but the guilty spouse will want you to know why you keep asking. As I said, they already know the confrontation is coming, so they're already planning their response. They're thinking to themselves, how would an innocent person handle this? This even goes for calling light attention to themselves. My adult daughter called my wife and accused her first. Wife then told me about the confrontation. 2 reasons. She had to talk to me first to steer the conversation in case daughter called me, but also because the guilty think if they stand in the light a little, then that attention goes away. I was stupid and should have asked why our daughter thought that, like what specifically she said, etc. I should have even called my daughter. How would your innocent spouse respond if talking to you about someone else's accusations against them? They would likely welcome an opportunity to give unsolicited explanations in detail because they have a clean conscience. Now, think about how an innocent person handles the confrontation. They would likely be annoyed that you want to see their phone because there's still some expectation of a minor level of personal privacy. They would still surrender the phone without much fight. They would be confused more than anything, really. The innocent don't try to deceive and don't certainly rehearse it. Also, remember this. The best lies have some truth mixed in them. My wife claimed she was alone at the tattoo shop getting sketches done, but she didn't come home with any sketches. She didn't take any pictures of them and had very little detail. She showed me online pics of what she wanted. Her appointment was at 1, but she left the house at 11:30 and would have only needed 45 minutes to drive there. She came home about 6. Now, I believe she went to the tattoo parlor that day, but I believe she went to his house first. They went together, got an appointment card for another appointment, future alibi, maybe had a nice lunch together, and then went back to his place for a romp and then came home. It was that evening I confronted her, so don't expect just because they can prove their whereabouts doesn't mean they can account for all the time easily. She said traffic was really bad, but no details about the crash, like a blue Honda flipped over, etc. She also said she went to the Home Depot looking for some rings for a lifting strap, but couldn't find them. Empty-handed errands. There's more things he taught, but I can't recall all of them. We'll update if I remember. I think your approach to gathering evidence and keeping a cool head throughout the confrontation was very wise. This goes to show how important it is to be meticulous and patient when dealing with such a painful situation. What stood out to me is how you highlighted the difference in behavior between a guilty person and an innocent one during a confrontation. That's something many people may not consider. It's evident you took a lot of care in how you handled the confrontation, which is commendable. Going forward, it's important to remember that you've done everything you could in this situation, and any outcome is not a reflection of you. Your experience could also help others going through a similar ordeal, and sharing this story is likely helping people you may not even be aware of. Update. She's still with him. Doubt it's going to work out for us. I've acknowledged I have anger issues, and that's what ultimately drove her away. I've actually been making pretty good progress. She hasn't ever admitted to the affair, but I can forgive because of my role in the whole thing. She told me that there's no hope of us reconciling, and she suggested we cohabitate for the kids. Well, I was optimistic that maybe we may one day reconcile. I am concerned that the cohabitation was a compromise she was offering because she was still afraid. So I offered her a divorce if that is what she really wants. She made no mention of it since. I took that to mean maybe she doesn't want that. Who knows? Maybe even she was softening up a little. We even took the kids to dinner last night and she was pleasant and conversational, even looking at me while talking. I really thought maybe the ice around her heart was melting. Then on the way home, she took a little barb at me, like to remind herself she doesn't love me. Well, this morning she was gone. I knew where she was. Unknown to her, I know where he lives. I took photos of her truck in his trailer carport before. I don't know why I even bothered, but maybe to get a gauge on her emotions. When I got there, it was just his truck in the drive, but then I saw her truck parked nearby. She didn't know I was there, but she texted me asking if we needed garbage bags, etc. I told her we were low and then asked if she was at the grocery store and if she was to get me some more creamer, as if I believed her. I wasn't getting a response, but soon I saw him pull his truck out of the drive, her truck backed in, and his truck leave. I couldn't get too good a view, but I'm sure they left together, so I went to the door to ring the bell. No answer. I texted her to ask if she got the email mentioned earlier. She said she didn't see it, etc. So I told her what it was, and she said we'd talk when she got back. She texted she was at Costco. I said, "No, you're not." About 45 minutes, she texted a picture of the Costco building. So yeah, she just got there and laying down a cover story. I told her to text a picture of the truck if she wanted me to believe her. She said she honestly doesn't care. I texted back, "You're a good person and I know you're trying to spare me from hurting even more, or maybe you're afraid of me, and I'm sorry for that. The lies hurt more than the truth at this point." She sent me a selfie of her in Costco. I haven't responded. I'm really conflicted because I've constantly walked out on her and the kids. I don't want to do that again. But at this point, I'm ready to move on. But staying means living with someone I love and her perpetuating a lie to either protect me or because she's afraid of how I'll react. None of this is healthy. Update. I did the lawyer consult yesterday, and other updates. Long. My therapist convinced me not to make any sudden decisions while my emotions are running high. So I took his advice and waited. The wife and I are cohabitating for the kids. Yeah, I'm a sap who's paying for a roof over my soon-to-be ex-wife's while she's out screwing this guy. She has a separate group chat with the kids and tells them things like, she's out with Maria getting drinks, of course at 4 a.m., and she's got to be at work in a couple hours, and the bars aren't open. My youngest, who's high-functioning autistic, looks up things like when the bars are open or when the gym is open, so they are not catching her in lies to them. She can lie her butt off to me all she wants, but she's screwing it up with the kids now. Well, after a couple good nights of sleep, I'm not losing sleep over her anymore, I did the lawyer consult. Well, the lawyer says with equal time, child support would only be $42 a month. My wife doesn't want to sell the family home, and she wouldn't be able to buy me out, and she couldn't afford it by herself. Lawyer says if I want to sell the house will be sold. So I'm on a bit of a power play here. I've got way more saved up than her, so that's at risk of equal division. However, some of those things like 401k and company stock haven't vested yet, and so the lawyer says that's a valid point for not being able to claim them because there's still an uncertainty. She said I could protect all of that by using the house as leverage. Basically, if I opt to continue paying half the house until the kids are grown in 5 years, I could negotiate for half the future equity, and using that as a concession, I could protect my savings. It would essentially be a real estate transaction at that point. As far as my personal life, I did crack under pressure from a lot of sleep and wanting to end the grieving and tried to reconcile with my wife, basically doing the pick-me dance. I think that was about 2 weeks ago. I came home from work because I couldn't function. I prayed, never do that, her truck would still be there, and I prayed that God would put a little love in her heart for me. I tried to talk to her, but that didn't work. I was pretty pathetic. It felt like God didn't answer. Fast forward to last Sunday. I didn't have anywhere to go, but I told her that I would be out of the house until work. And she can see the kids without me around. She bought them pizza before dipping out again soon after. Well, I sat in my car, reading this forum, and that forum, and other things. I don't know why, but I downloaded Tinder and set up a profile. I wasn't looking for a hookup, and just casually scrolled profiles, swiping left on everything. Talked to a girl but felt nothing. After work, the next morning, I see a profile and swipe right again. Not sure why. Instant match. She messaged me with, "Hello, handsome." I tell you, it couldn't have come at a much better time to hear someone share kindness towards me. So we talked and it went well. We had I guess it's a date on Tuesday night, a couple of drinks. I was honest with her about my situation because, on the off chance this goes anywhere, I'm not going to start on a lie. She had been cheated on as well, and was divorced a while but wanting to date again. I walked her to her car and we kissed. Mind you, my wife ended the marriage, so all we have at this point is a piece of paper. I'm not going to lie, thinking about this woman and having hope again is what calms my mind and lets me sleep again. Maybe it's God's mercy that he ignored my request and sent someone instead to show me I can be valued by someone because I do have hope for my future again. It would be nice if it went somewhere, but if it is just a passing moment, I'm still thankful. I know this is all fast, but my marriage was in trouble for years. I had contemplated divorce for a long time but didn't act on it, nor did I act to save the marriage either. Her affair was the final catalyst for ending it, and maybe it needed to happen because neither of us were happy, and neither of us were going to end it. At this point, if I was the one being tested, I wonder if I would have failed. I have worried that I'm a risk as far as that goes, so I've always kept my distance around other women. Anyways, the happy memories of my wife are all too distant. This all feels like when someone who has been terminally ill dies. You grieve the loss as soon as it happens, but I think acceptance comes much faster because you've been aware of the inevitability of it. Update. I paid the retainer today. Yep, I got the ball rolling on divorce now. Cohabitation is looking to come to an end soon. My oldest son, 23 male, and I are going to roommate a place. He's not on speaking terms with his mom right now because of her cheating on me. I'm seeking to sell the house and get my equity. She doesn't want to sell. Problem for her is she can't afford the payment and won't get enough from the divorce to buy me out. It cost me $2,500. Ouch, but worth it. Day trading is my hobby, and I'm really good at it. I'll have more money to execute bigger trades. Also, I've always wanted a 1979 Fiat Spider convertible and never could justify it as a responsible married man. Now I don't have to. So when this is all said and done, I'm going to be driving around in a car I've wanted for a really long time. I hope the vanity plate SPDR man is available when I get the car. When I walked out of the lawyer's office today, I was hearing, "Damn, it feels good to be a gangsta," in my head. I'm wondering if she's going to go full volcano when she gets served and sees I'm pushing the sale of the house. Dumb thing is, we would both walk away with enough cash to get our own homes, and she can move him in with her, and I can do my own thing as well. Update. Wayward wife is surrendering her truck back to the bank. Update. So she's been trying to text me casually, but I've been pretty good about gray rocking her, often just outright ignoring her texts. She texted me to say Home Depot has evaporative coolers in stock. We tried to get one during the winter when on sale. Asked when I was coming home, cohabitating separate rooms, and even saying to have fun at the water park tomorrow. I was taking the kids. Oh, by the way, dads, water parks are moms central, so plenty of divorced single moms there. Well, today she texted me to say that she is going to turn in her truck, 2019 Ram, with a $730 payment. So her oldest will have to stop using the old paid-off car with 220,000 miles. I gotta admit, it feels good to see her having to make sacrifices for her actions. Also, had a long talk with my sister. According to her, the guy my wife is with has had 4 failed marriages. She seems to think he gloms on to women, uses up their money, etc., and moves on. Seems unlikely. Anyways, I told my sister that, in that case, I hope he prods her to settle up on the divorce quickly. I also said I hope that they don't break up until I have that paper and have moved on. Edit. Just had to talk about this. She's planning to return the truck because she plans to refi the house and can't afford a cash out to pay off the truck and still be able to make the new loan amount. This fits with my plan, which was to get myself off the home. She knew I was looking for another place and didn't intend to stay and pay half the bills while she's out screwing around. I told her that my plan was for her to get the house, but I needed to get bought out. I have a lot of other liquid assets that she would have to surrender a claim to in order to buy me out. She still comes up short, but the amount, while big, is still trivial to me, as I see it as a potential cost of a quick exit. I want to get this hammered out while she's still agreeable. Time and distance has a way of getting people to not value equitable splits. She wasn't very happy about not getting any part of the liquid assets, but I told her she would have 100% of the home and could do as she pleases with it, including keeping it until the kids are all grown or even moving her boyfriend in. I still have my guard up. It seems like your emotions are still running high and there's a lot of anger and hurt, but the calm and clear-headed approach you're taking with the legal and financial side of things is a good sign that you're going to be able to navigate through this tough time. I'm rooting for you, and I hope things start to look up soon. As a side note, I really admire your strength in being able to admit your own mistakes and work on them. That's a rare trait and something that will serve you well in the future. Keep on keeping on. You've got this. Update. Tomorrow I get my new house and sign affidavits with my lawyer. Update. So if you followed my story, you know my soon-to-be ex-wife of 19 years decided to have an exit affair that I discovered in March. I did the pick-me thing, but after counseling realized my life will be better without her. I found a rental house within walking distance of our house so that the children, 13 male, 14 male, can come and go as they please. I changed shifts at work so I can get them to and from school more easily. I get the keys and move in tomorrow. I already have the utilities turned on. I can afford to start over because I've been the financially stable one. I also have to meet with my lawyer to sign the affidavits for the divorce paperwork. The soon-to-be ex-wife and I have an email agreement, and the lawyer will model the paperwork accordingly. So, hopefully, we'll have signed on everything and just have to wait out the waiting period. I may well have the decree by late June, early July. I'm getting a little less than half, but if my sanity comes at a higher price, then so be it. I have some future unrealized restricted stock units from my work that have yet to vest, and the agreement includes her forfeiting any future claim to them. So if I continue to stay at my job, those shares will be worth a lot. I see no reason to leave the company I'm at because they have been totally supportive with a 30-day leave of absence, including short-term disability. This whole experience has made me more loyal to my employer. Since she has a good job that pays well above the poverty line, I won't have to pay spousal maintenance. Also, with equal time and being the one who pays for the health, dental, vision insurance for the kids, I only have to pay $42 a month for child support for less than 60 months, and we're negotiating that away as well. I think in 5 years, when the children are fully grown, I'll have enough money to possibly retire abroad at 47 instead of working here in the US until I'm 70. As a married man, I know I was financially trapped, forever wasting money on giant houses and other material excesses that I don't want. I guess you could say that living on the other side of the planet from her would be a fringe benefit in itself as well. As far as relationships go, she broke my heart, but she isn't taking that heart from me. There's a girl out there somewhere that I will entrust it to, even if it means being vulnerable again. Love and hope are the greatest things, and you should not ever let a cheating spouse take those things from you. Around here, however, we don't look backwards for very long. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors and doing new things. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. Walt Disney. Update. Moving on. Crossing things off my bucket list and traveling abroad in a few hours. So I've taken the month of July off from work and I'm going to Thailand. I think the key to being single again is that you have to rediscover the you that you have neglected. Right now, I'm adding to my list of experiences. When the soon-to-be ex-wife texts me, I respond when I feel like it. Sometimes not for days. The divorce is still being worked out. The financials and assets are all sorted out. Just have to sort out the custody and child support. My lawyer said her proposal was ridiculous and no judge would entertain it. So instead of amending it, we're just going to start with our own. My proposal starts with the kids are old enough to decide for themselves, and I've got a house within walking distance of hers. She moved him in right after I moved out. It doesn't faze me. In fact, it's almost comical how cliche it is. As far as the trip goes, yes, there's a girl involved. She knows my circumstances. I talk to her all the time online. When I lose sleep at night, it's not because of a cheater that did me wrong. It's because there is a 14-hour time difference between myself and this Thai girl. My advice to the others here still struggling, just keep moving forward. Update. I got a divorce and I'm moving on. Well, my divorce is final. Long story short, I left her after she basically had an exit affair. The custody and support didn't go as well as I had hoped, but I figured a best case scenario was just that, a best case. I did get her to agree to letting half the child support go into 529 college savings plans for the boys. They're teens, and so when she pushed for alternate weekends only, I figure they're mostly grown now anyways, with few milestones left. This schedule means she has to deal with the transportation to and from school. Also, it allowed me to take on a travel position at work that allows me to get about 15 hours of overtime each week, with meals paid and overtime doesn't figure into child support here. I updated my insurance at work and removed her from the policy, saving me more money. Her policy at work may well be more than she will get in child support. To top it off, I found out she has breast lumps. It's like karma for letting another man fondle them. I also updated my life insurance plans so she doesn't benefit. I saw her in person the other day when I gave her some money for a medical need for one of the boys. I wasn't fazed. I didn't feel much of anything. I'm out here living my best life now and don't need any dark clouds messing that up. For those of you just beginning this journey through hell, keep on moving. You don't want to let the devil catch you resting. I had sleepless days. I gave up my dignity begging for her back early on. Had to take leave from work, etc. All I gotta say is, you will survive. Keep on keeping on. Update. Karma's starting to roll the dice. I tend to believe that justice is eventually achieved and that people generally get the outcome they deserve. I found out she recently got fired from her job. It's pretty fitting considering that's where she met her affair partner. Supposedly, she was being harassed by a coworker and she reported it and was fired. They probably figured she was the one doing the harassing since she already ruined 2 marriages. Affair partner was married also, to sleep with a coworker in the past. I imagine that history might not help her any if this becomes a lawsuit. Broke and jobless and under heavy vehicle debt, she has to sell the house she intended on keeping. She can't afford movers, her back is bad, and her boyfriend is old and will probably get stuck with the task. Crazy thing is, I know of a good job that would be better pay and benefits than her old job. Part of me wants to pass on the info and part of me just wants to pop some popcorn. Well, my therapist told me a long time ago that it's not my job to rescue her and not to carry the burden of doing so. So extra butter it is then. The situation with your ex seems like a classic case of karma taking its course, although it's bittersweet to see someone's life unravel in such a way. But like you said, it's not your responsibility to rescue her anymore. She made her choices, and now it's time for her to live with the consequences. Your experiences and your attitude towards moving forward can be really inspiring for people going through similar situations. And the quote by Walt Disney you shared perfectly sums up your outlook. It's all about keeping moving forward and finding new paths. And of course, the extra butter. Keep on keeping on, my friend. Can't wait to hear more about your journey. And now, a community reaction followed by a response. Connect Promotion 81 says, "Be ready in case she comes back for you. Don't take her back, and I'd choose popcorn. Route, your therapist is right. Not your job to save her." The OP replies, "I used to solve all the problems, so that's something to watch out for. She always does these reach out type of texts, like finding something I left behind and asking what I want her to do with it. I've pretty much taken the stance of, if I'm not legally obligated to respond to this in some way, then don't." Need advice for an unusual affair in the aftermath. Hey guys, been on here the last few days reading these horror stories. It's good to know I'm not alone. My situation is a bit unusual. About 4.5 months ago, I found out my wife was having an affair. It wasn't hard to uncover, seeing as she was terrible at hiding it. When I confronted her, we talked for 4 hours and made her tell me every detail. It took some coaxing, but after about 20 minutes, she started talking. She said some crazy stuff to me that night, and the worst part about it was the way she said them. All nonchalant, like she was chatting with a girlfriend at a coffee shop. One example is when it got to the sex, I asked her was it the same as what we do or was it different? In my mind, I was thinking positions. What she said was like a dagger in my chest. She said it was different because it was passionate. I told her, "You're saying in the 10 years we've been together we haven't had passionate sex?" And her response was, maybe on our honeymoon." The worst part was how she said it, casual as can be. So I thought this girl is a narcissist, but I'm in doubt because narcissists have smarts and cunning. How I found out was the first night she had a condom sticking out of her wallet in the living room. The next night, I checked her laptop and she didn't realize it was connected to her phone. Maybe you guys can explain this one to me because to this day, I still don't get what she did. I went on her photos and she screenshotted her entire conversation with this guy and deleted it one by one. It was all one of her deleted files. Maybe you can tell me what a screen recording is? It's only for iPhones. Some of the screenshots she took had timestamps at the bottom. I made her text him that night and tell him not to contact her again. The next morning, she tells me he texted her, which I appreciated. If he was smart, he would have left it alone, but his response was, "Are you okay?" Right then, from that response, I knew that weasel would keep trying. I told her as much. I forgot to mention that when I confronted her, I told her that we were done because that's the one thing I couldn't forgive, and I told her for our daughter's sake, she can stay here until she finds a place. A sleepless week goes by, and the only thing I noticed is that she disconnected her phone from her laptop. No biggie. She goes out for a birthday party that weekend, and she did go where she said she did because I checked the bank account. However, come home drunk, she maybe has a drink twice a year, goes into the bathroom for half an hour, and then to bed without even saying a word. First red flag of the night. Half hour later, I go in the garage and her car is not there. I think, sure, she's had too much to drink, but at that point, my gut was screaming at me. So I found her Snapchat password and logged in on my phone. And sure enough, the first person on top of her recents is the guy she had an affair with. By the way, she told me he had no social media. All I see is the last thing he said was, "Show me." So while I was in her account, I changed it from delete instantly to save for 24 hours. That's going to be important later. At this point, it's 4 a.m., so I wait until I can't take it anymore and wake her up at 7 a.m. asking where her car was. I told her to call one of her girlfriends to pick her up and get her car and walked downstairs. I was still logged into her account on my phone, and in the 5 seconds it took me to walk downstairs and open my phone, she snapped him good morning with a nude picture. The worst part about that was the picture was from our wedding night. Anyways, She leaves to get her car, and I'm sitting there thinking, how could she tear my heart out twice in 1 week? She comes back and I tell her we need to talk. Her response is, "Ugh, this again?" I asked her if she texted him last night. She denied it on a technicality, so I asked, did she snap him? She denied. So in my anger, I rolled my shirt up and did the pose she did and said, "Does good morning ring a bell?" Her eyes lit up in immediate anger, and she started yelling and hitting me. Relax, guys. My 2-year-old hits harder. I told her I'm leaving for a few days and for her to pack her stuff up. As I'm walking out the door, she asks when I'll be back, and I was confused because I couldn't have been any clearer. She asked if I was coming back that day, and I kid you not, because I'm supposed to go to a party later today. I looked at her in the eye and said, "There is truly something wrong with your head," and left. I'm getting to it, guys, I promise. A few days goes by, and my daughter keeps calling out to Mommy, and it broke my heart, so I caved and let her back in. She deleted her entire Snapchat when she came back and promised to wait until we were divorced. A few more days goes by on that following weekend, and she's supposed to go to some food festival with her girlfriend that Sunday. Saturday night, my gut starts screaming again, so while she's giving our daughter a bath, the only time her phone is not in her hand, I go to open it, and she changed the passcode. The first thing that pops in my head is our daughter's birthday. It opens on the first try, and sure enough, she once again is talking to that guy on Snapchat, talking about meeting up at the festival. I started getting a guy feeling when I got a notification earlier that day that she was back on Snap. I go on a walk until our daughter goes to sleep. I come back home with her completely unaware that I saw her phone. I come up with a plan to mess with her on my walk, knowing exactly how it was going to play out. When I got back, I asked her politely to see her phone because I had a feeling. She willingly showed me her phone 2 days before that. She says, "Fine," goes downstairs, and all I hear out loud is, "No," and she locks herself in the bathroom. I calmly walk down there and knock, asking if everything is okay. She responds with, "I can't believe you don't trust me," yada yada. She opens the door after a few minutes and gives me her phone. Long story short, I gave her 10 minutes to get out. Here's the kicker. 2 months later, I get a call from my dad that she's in the hospital with a giant brain tumor. I go there because as much as I hate her, she is my child's mother, and it's the right thing to do. The whole drive there, I'm thinking, well, that explains her insane behavior for the last couple of months. I tell her that, and she's in complete denial. They take it out the next day. 2 weeks later, test results come back really bad. She's got maybe 18 months. To this day, she is in complete denial about it. I was going to be supportive, but when I put her phone away at the hospital, I found an empty bottle of sex lube in her purse. That's important because one of the last things I said to her when I finally kicked her out was, "If you ever loved me at all in the 10 years we've been together, just start telling me the truth and wait until we're divorced." So after that, I cut all contact with her. How can I talk to someone who is so detached from reality? Everyone has been telling me to forgive her because it was the tumor, but that's bull. She knew what she was doing. There's a lot more details of this story, but I've rambled on long enough. Let me know if you want more details and I'll post the rest on another day. Thanks for the help, guys. Oh my gosh, OP. I feel like it might not all be just from the tumor. It's hard to imagine thinking that anyone is capable of hurting their partners like that. That being said, I think everyone is capable of free will and making choices. She willingly made choices that would ruin and totally disregard your marriage and the vows you both took. Tumor or not, you're allowed to not like her right now. She betrayed your trust and she continued to do so and lie about it. And to say the sex with him was more passionate? I feel like passion in a relationship is something that we have to constantly be mindful of and work on to try to keep the spark alive, to try to make it new and fun throughout the years before we run off and try to find gratification elsewhere. Somewhere along the years, something changed and deteriorated. Passion and intimacy are integral for a relationship, specifically a marriage. Moreover, I think the first sign of failing in marriage is a lack of intimacy. What do you think? Our next OP isn't the person she once was. Would you consider a betrayal of trust to be cheated on? I have been following this sub for a while, reading many stories and wondering if I should tell mine and ask for input. I think my relationship is over, so here I am. I will try to be as brief as possible so I can actually have people read and share their input. If you need more details, I will be glad to share. I just want to be as straightforward as possible. Me, 26 female, and my boyfriend, 27 male, met 5 years ago on Tinder during 2017. We met and it was love at first sight. Started dating immediately. Within a year of being together, I found out about his first love who had dumped him a couple of months before we met. They had been together since high school, lived together, were engaged until one day she woke up and dumped him and left without ever turning back and without a reason. He thinks it's because she wanted to have a baby and he didn't at the moment. Who knows? He was very depressed after she left him, and still while we were dating, but things have gotten better. I think somehow us being together has been good for him. We had our roller coaster during the first year when I found out the story, but hey, here we are. As of today, we have been living together since 2019. He bought a house in 2020, and we both live here. It is our home. We have had a pretty happy life. No complaints even with my low libido. We have made it work this whole time. If you asked me a year ago if I was happy, I would have said yes without hesitation. In February of 2022, after a heart-to-heart conversation, he gave me a promise ring after stating he would never want to get married as she broke his heart back then. I accepted it even though I wanted to get married, but I said I would make it work because I love him, and I was fine with it. It was our promise to love each other no matter what. In March of this year, I saw him texting her while we were together at an amusement park. I could hear my heart pounding. I asked why, and he said she had texted him a few days earlier. I had noticed him acting strange that week, but hey, we all have our days, so I had not read further into it. That night, when we got home after having a terrible day at the park, I confronted him and he stated they were trying to have closure, that she had a 1.5-year-old kid. She was going through a divorce and wanted to reach out to him to try and understand what had happened. We had a pretty rough couple of weeks after that night because I will use bullet points to make it shorter. The following night, he left for 5 hours at night to speak on the phone with her. She lives in another state. She told him she wanted to be back with him, that she still loved him. He kept talking to her behind my back after I asked him to stop, and he agreed and said he was not going to. Video calls during the day, long drives at night. During this whole situation, I looked on his phone. I know this was an invasion of his privacy, and I discovered that during 2018 to 2019, he was texting her, even asked her to go on vacation with him to a beautiful place that he took me after she said no. Since then, we made peace, decided to move on, work things out. I have read countless blogs of how to forgive and forget, but the truth is that I can't move on. I changed. I can tell I am not the same person I was. I am not happy anymore. I don't think I love him as I used to. Before, I would die before letting anything happen to him. Now I just think, F him. I love you, but F you. You need to hurt. And I make big deals out of nothing. Before, we would never argue. Maybe once every 2 months. Now, any tiny thing I want to argue. Be mad. We've had the conversation a handful of times where he has asked me why I act the way I do. He even said I'm acting as a B. And when I tell him the truth, that I'm still hurt, I can't let go. He says it's stupid, that he didn't hurt me, that I am making a big deal out of nothing, that I decide to be hurt, and I don't want to move on. Today, we had a fight about a house chore where we both yelled at each other, said we are tired of this crap, and then he said he wants me out of his house by the end of the week. Has anyone been in a similar situation? What suggestions would you have? Ask for suggestions. Poncho2504 comes through. He literally carried on an emotional affair with his ex. Your feelings are entirely valid. You will never be able to love him the same way you did before you found out. That's gone. It's dead. Your choice depends on whether you feel you could fall in love with him again, despite knowing he was never really in the relationship in the first place. The OP replies, and I agree with you about the emotional affair. I read about it in my countless blog readings, but to this day, he still denies any type of wrongdoing. In his opinion, I'm the one who is wrong about it. He states that if the roles were reversed, he would support me reaching out to my ex, which is the biggest BS you could say. And the truth is, I don't know if I can go back to normal. It has already been 5 months, and I can't let go. WearyTap9292 has one last comment. Yes, I have been in similar enough situations to be able to tell you that it's over. Actually, it doesn't sound like you were anything more than a stand-in for his ex, so I doubt he was ever serious about you. It sounds superficial at best. You will never become the woman he's really in love with. In my experience, the escalated fighting is what precedes the divorce. Move on. I think you had a right to invade his privacy when he continuously disregarded your request to not speak to her again. The fact that he thinks it's not a big deal also is hurtful. He's betrayed your trust more than once, going behind your back to ask her to go on vacation, then taking you. At the same time, I'm assuming he only gave you a promise ring because he was expecting to get back together with you. Why would he commit to you when there's still hope of committing to her? He's not invested in you, and I'm so sorry. You have every right to feel hurt and angry right now. What you thought was real isn't. You resent him, deservedly so. You say it yourself. You can't move on. You've changed. In fact, You've changed for the better. You don't deserve that nonsense anymore. It's time to move on to bigger and better things and to people who want to invest their time and their heart to you fully. My wife had emergency surgery and will be recovering in the hospital. The doctors think at least 10 days. At home, I found messages on her phone that show she's cheating. My 32 male, wife, 36 female, married for 5 years, fell off an extension ladder yesterday, got knocked out, ruptured her spleen, and needed surgery. The kids and I stayed crazy late, or early depending on how you look at it, hoping she'd wake up enough to see us, and she finally did. We got home and went to sleep. Then, her phone started buzzing a bunch on the nightstand, and it actually woke me up. There were no visible notifications, but I finally figured out it was Facebook Messenger logged into some account that I didn't recognize talking with some guy I didn't know. I don't remember everything precisely since it was a vanishing conversation, except I didn't realize it would vanish, so I only saw it once. There had been a lot since yesterday afternoon, like 50 messages, but it was obvious she's cheating or way too cozy with this guy. Lots of heart emojis and flirty sounding stuff like, "Gorgeous, still asleep?" I kind of freaked and started looking through all of her phones. Then I went back into Messenger, and the messages were gone. He sent a few more messages. "Where are you? No morning kisses?" with a kiss emoji, and "Did I do something wrong?" I screenshot them, and then he said, "Why are you ignoring me?" So I assumed he could somehow see the app was active again. Then he said, "Hello?" And then, "Please talk to me, I miss you." And then stopped sending messages after that. That was hours ago. I went through her phone a little more, and there's other questionable stuff, but nothing as crystal clear as that conversation that vanished. Frustratingly, but mostly I've just been sitting here, trying to think of the timing of talking to her about this. I love my wife. I don't want to just split from her without getting a lot more context. I want to say that I feel like I don't really want to split from her at all, even if she is cheating, but I also don't want to just put on some fake face until she recovers. I probably should have already gone back to the hospital right now, honestly. It's hard to know what I feel or should do. I'm a little numb from thinking and feeling like my thoughts are leading nowhere and also leading everywhere. So I figured that I'd post and let people give me some ideas to think about, rather than me just sitting here like a confused idiot. Well, you want some advice? Let's see what the community says. Jane Go says, "Whatever you decide, I wouldn't want to have that conversation with someone who wasn't fully present, drugged up from surgery, etc. I would want to be sure that they heard me and remembered the conversation so that there would be no excuses later." Next up, we have Princess Crafty Pants. I feel so old asking this, but can you change the settings on the app so that the messages don't vanish? It'll depend on the app, of course, but might be worth looking into. Messenger person might have been told she's in the hospital, so they've stopped. Whenever you talk to her, I'd ask an open-ended question or make an open-ended statement and let her fill in as much or as little as she wants. From there, I think you'll be able to gauge her intent in all of this, and gauging her intent might help you sort out your own feelings about whether or not to stay. Something like, "Honey, who is name from vanishing conversation?" If she says a friend from work or whatever, just a nudge of, "Oh, why does a coworker miss your morning kisses?" Don't rush to fill the silence. Since she has vanishing messages on a separate app or account, I have a feeling you'll end up with trickle truth responses, which is why I advise an open-ended question or statement. You don't show your cards. You don't say what you know. You send any new evidence to an email account she has no access to. If she trickle truths or refuses to cut contact or anything else that has not the openness you need to be able to move forward, it would be advisable to separate. One more from Tossaway 78701. Even if you don't want a divorce, she might, so go ahead and consult with a divorce lawyer this week. You can have a professional retrieve all evidence of an affair off her electronics, and you don't have to look at it. Set up a therapy appointment for you to help process the next few steps in private. I would not mention what you know for at least 4 days, as she is full of drugs and recovering. On to the next story. Cheated back on my cheating wife. Sit back, my friends, grab a beer, or a 6-pack, or maybe a 12-pack. Relax and enjoy the show. This is going to be a very long one, as this story covers nearly 50 years. It has more ups and downs than the wildest roller coaster in the world. And to put this out there, right up front, to anyone wanting to say we should split, don't waste your breath, as that is never going to happen. I love this woman with every fiber of my being, and in fact, simply don't know how not to love her. I should also say I am writing this mostly for myself, as a recent trigger has blown open the floodgates and I am swimming in emotions and trying to process it all. That said, I would welcome any constructive comments, and yes, I am sure there will be plenty calling me dumbass for staying, but as you will see, it is a two-way street. Also, please keep in mind, this is entirely from my perspective and memories. We met our senior year in high school. She was infatuated with my best friend, and I thought she was the most beautiful and sexiest girl I have ever seen. My friend had no interest in her, and I pursued her hard. I finally won her over, and we started dating. She was actually my very first girlfriend and sexual partner, and yes, I was a virgin. I was not her first. I fell hard for her and knew I wanted to be with her for the rest of my life. After high school, we went off to a local university. Same school, although she was in a 2-year program and I was in a 4-year program. I could not find my focus at school. I had always been a fairly good student. I left school after the first year and went to work full time. She met a guy in her same program and became friendly. Yes, you can see where this is going. Towards the end of her program one Saturday evening, she said she had to go to the library to study. Yes, I sort of stalked her, as this was quite out of her character, and she was not home after 1 a.m. when I went by her house. I did not confront her on this and let it slide. We had gotten engaged her last year in college and were planning on a wedding after graduation. A month or so before the wedding, she called off the wedding and said she was going to go to a friend's house for a week and then to visit her grandmother for a week to find herself, and we would figure out where we stood after that. I was heartbroken, but she was adamant on going. I told her I would drive her, she did not have a car, to the friend's house, but she said no, she wanted to do it on her own and would hitchhike. During the week, something came up, don't remember what, and I found the girlfriend's number and called her, trying to get in touch with my girlfriend, although probably should not refer to her that way, as we were broken up. Yep, you guessed it, she was not there, and the girlfriend had no idea what I was talking about her visiting and had no idea where she was. Right then and there, I knew she was with the guy from school. She did not call me the entire week and eventually did call from her grandmother's and asked me to pick her up at the bus stop several towns away at midnight for her return. Again, I did not confront her and picked her up. On the way home, she asked me if I would still marry her. Like the idiot I am, of course I said yes. As I said, I love this woman with all my heart and just wanted to spend my life with her. I suppressed what I knew and picked up our lives where we were left off. We got married and life moved on, or so I thought. Fast forward to a few weeks before our first anniversary, and I thought I had a hernia as I worked construction, so it was entirely possible. I went to the emergency room and they couldn't find anything and said I should see a urologist. I basically dismissed this and went about my way. My now wife decided I needed to follow through, and she made an appointment for me with the local urologist and told me to go or don't come home, to prove how serious she was about me going, as she knew I would otherwise blow it off. I went, and within minutes he told me I had a serious problem. I was scheduled for surgery 2 days later and was ultimately diagnosed with cancer 9 days before our first anniversary. I went through scans and such, and the doctor told me I had a 50-50 chance of living 2 years, and I had a less than 10% chance of seeing my 25th birthday. I went through another major surgery and endured over a year of chemotherapy. Needless to say, I survived despite the odds. Obviously, since I'm here writing this, Life went on yet again. Fast forward another 15 years, and we have 2 young sons, and life is pretty good. I knew what had happened before we were married and several years earlier. I had begun pressing her to admit what had happened. One day we were lying in bed making love, and she finally admitted she had cheated. Or sort of, as we were technically broken up, and I'm sure the reason she had in fact broken up was to justify sleeping with this guy. She also admitted to the library night when we weren't broken up, and that she had gone to his apartment but did not have sex because he was drunk and couldn't perform, but she had every intention to screw this guy that night. She then went on to confess the affair continued for several months after our wedding. Honestly, since I pretty much knew about the library and her week away, that was almost a relief, as she was finally coming clean, even if it did take 15 years to do so. But the fact she continued to screw this guy after our marriage absolutely gutted me. She had been effing him and then come home to me like nothing ever happened. She was obviously a great liar. She told me she ended it a few months after our wedding and told him she wanted to make our marriage work. I should also say here, because of all that had happened to both of us as children and cancer and all, we are both experts at internalizing and compartmentalizing our feelings and emotions. When she admitted the affair, I simply packed it away almost like it never happened. Yeah, I know, not healthy, but it was how I dealt with things. Life went on yet again. I am sure you can see the pattern here. Okay, so fast forward another 15 years or so. See a cycle here? And our marriage was not great. We were more like roommates and in fact hadn't had sex in like 18 months. I found a semi-dating sex site with a blog portion to it, and I began posting. My posts were not blatantly sexual, mostly funny stories and GP stuff. It was a global website and had people from all over the world here. Well, lo and behold, I became the #1 blogger, based on likes and replies and such. I was soaking up the attention. I had severe self-esteem issues and did not consider myself even remotely sexy. I honestly did not believe I was worthy of desire and truly felt my wife no longer desired me either. I had not even looked at another woman sexually in our entire relationship, going on 30 years at that point, and my wife would often tell me I was ignorant to other women flirting or hitting on me. I simply had no interest. I had the love of my life. Well, one thing led to another. Yes, you can see where this is going. And I started corresponding with several women. Some of these chats became more flirty and eventually sexual. One woman in particular was quite persistent, and ultimately, I agreed to meet with her. She lived one state away, for lunch one day. She all but threw herself at me, and although we only kissed that day, I was hooked on the intention and having this woman not only obviously considering me desirable, but actually pursuing me. That all led into a 5-month-long sexual affair. It took me that long to figure out how badly I had effed up, and I finally broke it off. I immediately told my wife, even though it took her 15 years to tell me, and I know it broke her heart. I felt she should know and be allowed to make her own decision as to our future. I gave her what space she needed, but we did not separate. We did not talk about it much, and she only asked a very few questions when I confessed. As I said above, she is nearly as good as me at internalizing and compartmentalizing, and after a while, our life again went back to normal, if you could ever consider our life normal. I know the affair was the biggest mistake of my life, and something I will regret until the day I die. For those thinking this was a revenge affair, no, it was not, as I wasn't even thinking about my wife's past indiscretions at the time. I was feeling lost in my marriage and got caught up in my selfish need to feel desired. I was intoxicated by the attention. The sex was at best bland, and no comparison to the sex my wife had in our past. Yes, there was of course a bit of excitement with something new, but definitely not worth all of the heartache I caused. I should also be clear, I have never even looked at another woman since the fateful day. I have had zero interest in any other women, and very much reverted to oblivion regarding the opposite sex. I have been 1000% faithful since the fateful day, and would never do anything so stupid ever again. I'm regretful for what I did, and not that I got caught, as technically I did not get caught, I confessed. And life goes on yet again. Fast forward a few more years, and a business I owned failed due to the financial crisis of 2008, and forced me into personal bankruptcy. We lost almost everything. Damn, the hits just keep on coming. We managed to once again reinvent ourselves, and today are in a pretty good situation living a great life, mostly financially secure and looking at retirement. A few days ago, my wife and I went out to our favorite winery and were having lunch and a glass of wine, and we were talking. Many years before my affair, I had bought her a 3-carat diamond wedding set. When our younger son was getting ready to ask his girlfriend to marry him, she gave him that wedding set to give to his fiancée. During our conversation, those rings came up and she said, "You know, those rings had bad memories for me, and that is why I gave them to our son." I responded at the time that no, I had not thought about that. I had never even considered that, and had found it strange she had given away the ring set, particularly without having discussed with me first. Wow, that hit me like a ton of bricks. It triggered me and flooded back all the emotions I had so neatly shut away. The past several days, I have been treading water and trying desperately to work through it all. I am reliving the shame I have for having hurt the one I love so deeply, as well as the hurt I felt from her indiscretion. I have been questioning everything. Why did she do what she did? Does she have any idea how deeply she hurt me? Why did I let her off when I knew she had cheated before our marriage? Why did I even pick her up at the bus stop? Why did I let her off again when she finally came clean 15 years later? Why did it take her 15 years to confess when I did it immediately? How could she lie to me all those years? What other information has she not told me? She had plenty of chances to stray other times in our life. Did she? Does she even really love me? This one I know she does. How could I have been so stupid, naive, blind all those years? How could I have been so stupid to break my own vows and compromise my own integrity, and for what? How could I have hurt the love of my life so deeply? What the F was I thinking? Why did the first time in my life I do all the thinking with my little head? How could I possibly risk losing everything and everyone I cared about in life? And so here I sit, awash in emotion and simply trying to pull myself back together. My questions honestly need no real answers, and that would never change anything. I will not leave my wife, and I only hope she feels the same. This is just about working through my emotions and getting myself back. Thanks for taking the time to read, and welcome any constructive comments. Hope you enjoyed the drama with your six-pack. Better than reality TV. Our first comment comes from Armor Teague 227. Dude, you rug swept. Throughout your whole ordeal with duo bouts of infidelity on both sides regarding you and your wife. What exactly are you trying to teach here? Moving on, Tinfoil Hats and Bats wanted to chime in. I didn't read this whole thing, but basically you both cheated on each other at some points in your relationship, before and after marriage, and it's all still a source of turmoil and pain many years later. Doesn't seem like either of you dealt with it in healthy ways, and it was mostly rug swept. I don't know I'd call that successful reconciliation, to be honest. Probably a good eye-opening story for those who want to reconcile. Lastly, from Scary Slice 9. You feel bad, but does she? My guess, yes, because by her actions, giving away the diamond ring because it means nothing, only conclusion you both somehow build a prison together. You're guilty of letting her treat you the way she wants, and her too used of you being her plan B, safe bet, loyal, etc. Only advice, stop self-torturing, blaming yourself. You treat what she done as nothing, so do the same for yourself. What you both did is a choice, not a mistake. End of the day, don't beat yourself up. Live and learn how best to move forward. History repeated itself, just on different sides. If she's not that forgivable as you, well, live life as normal like you always has. You got to be fair to yourself by pointing out her mistakes towards you, not just yours to her. Relationship is a two-way street, not one. Wife cheated and abandoned me for a rich man. Came back after 5 years begging me to take her back. I, male 32, married my first wife, Olivia, name changed, female 32, at the age of 24. We were young when we fell in love. At the time, I thought that she was the perfect woman, but boy was I wrong. One moment, I thought we were madly in love, but she didn't give it a second thought when she left me for a wealthy businessman. That's when I realized what she really wanted from me. I can't exactly remember the first time I noticed Olivia. We grew up in the same small town and attended the same high school, but we didn't hang out in the same friend group back then. She was one of the most beautiful girls at our school, and I was just some geeky kid. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would ever have a shot with her. Fast forward to a few years later, I just returned to our small town after graduating from university. I was preparing to start a job at the veterinary clinic and had just moved into a new condo. Of course, it was a big change coming back to a quiet small town from a fast-paced university lifestyle in the city, but I was looking forward to reconnecting with some old friends and being close to my family again. A few nights after settling into my condo, I went out to a bar downtown to hang out with some old friends. I offered to buy everyone a round of drinks and headed up to the bar. As I got closer to the bar, I noticed that there was something very familiar about the bartender. It took me a moment to recognize who it was. But then it hit me. That beautiful girl I used to see in the hallway every day in high school was now a woman. "What's your poison, honey?" she asked me. Now, I can't lie about this next part. My heart was racing and I was feeling nervous. At this moment, I felt like a geeky teenager all over again. I just stood there with a blank look on my face. It might have only been a few seconds, but it felt like a lifetime. I opened my mouth and the only thing to come out of it was an awkward, what? I felt like the biggest idiot on the planet. What was wrong with me? I had just spent the last 4 years living in the city, always going out and talking to women. Now, I was a nervous wreck, but there was something about Olivia that always made me nervous. "You went to Westbrook High, didn't you?" Olivia asked as she was pouring the drinks. At that moment, I was in complete shock. All these years, I thought I was invisible to her. As the night went on, I kept offering to buy rounds of drinks for the table. I was using any excuse to go up and chat with the bartender. I was meeting with my friends after many years, so none of us wanted that night to be over. Apart from my friends, I found another reason to not leave the bar that night. It was Olivia. I don't know if it was the alcohol or if Olivia was much more down to earth than I initially thought, but I was feeling a lot more comfortable approaching her as the night went on. Before closing, she asked for my phone and put her number in it. Over the next year, things went really well. The clinic I was working for extended its hours and I was making really good money. I was approved for a mortgage and preparing to move into my first house. Olivia and I started dating after that night at the bar. On our first date, I knew she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I proposed to her 5 months into the relationship, and she said yes. We got married within a year. My friends and family thought I was crazy moving so fast with the relationship, but I didn't care. The first few years of our marriage, it seemed like a dream. I made enough at the clinic to support us both. We weren't millionaires or anything, but it was enough to pay the bills and get by. Olivia had left her job at the bar once we got married. She told me she wanted to take some time off work and focus on her art. This seemed strange to me at first because she had never shown interest in painting, drawing, or anything of the sort, but I wanted to be a supportive husband. Olivia didn't get a stroke of luck with her art passion, but she was called by her ex-boss for part-time bartending work during peak season and major bookings. She was good at her job and loved it too, but she didn't want to do it full-time. We were good for a couple years until one day her old boss from the bar called her again. This time it was a big corporate event taking place in town. CEOs and business owners from all over the state were traveling to our small town for investment and expansion of their businesses. It was a month-long summit. Olivia's boss needed some skilled and seasoned employees for that event, and hence Olivia was called in for it temporarily. She too readily agreed to it because the pay was really good. I didn't think anything of it at first, but I started to feel like something wasn't right a few weeks into the gig. Olivia was working every single night and she was staying out later than usual. It was usual for bartenders to wrap their day post-midnight, so I didn't bat an eye. For the first few days, she was home by 3 a.m. After a week, one morning my alarm went off at 7 a.m. Olivia wasn't in bed next to me. I checked my phone and saw there was a text message from her saying that it was the last night of corporate events, the people were staying late, and she had no idea when she would be done. After all, these were some big-shot customers willing to put out a lot of money. I didn't mind thinking it was just one time. However, as the days passed, her schedule got me suspicious. I used to leave for work at 8 a.m. and on most days she wasn't home until then. By the time I came back home, she was already gone. So it was more than 4 or 5 days since I had seen her. I asked her what time she was getting back home and she said 9 a.m., but I checked the CCTV footage on my house. According to it, she used to come home by the afternoon, by 12 p.m. Surprisingly, she didn't look tired when she came home. Also, no bars are open in the morning, or at least they don't let the night shift employee continue during the day. I was always a trusting husband, but this didn't feel right. So, in the 4th week, I decided to leave for work at 9 a.m., but she wasn't home by then. I decided to clear the air and put an end to my thoughts. Hence, I went to the hotel where she was put up. It was a 5-star hotel where the business summit was happening, and Olivia's company got the contract of managing the bar and the bartending service for that event. On my way, I got her a berry smoothie, knowing they were her favorite, and a fresh croissant. I was going to drop it off for her at the bar. When I arrived, the bar was closed. The doors were locked, the lights were off, and the place was dead quiet. I went to the reception of that hotel asking about the bar. The receptionist gave me a look for asking about the bar at 10 a.m. in the morning. She told me that the bar closes at 1 a.m. sharp. I inquired that there was a business summit going on, and for that reason, if it was possible that the bar section of that hotel was running until morning. She got perplexed at my question and said that the bar closes at 1 a.m. sharp and cut me off. I sounded creepy to her, maybe. Before this moment, something in the back of my mind was telling me she had been lying. I just didn't want to believe it. I texted Olivia asking where she was. She said she was at the bar. I sent her a picture of me standing in front of the closed bar and asked her to come out wherever she was so that we could talk this out. She said that she would reach home in an hour. I had something important at work, so I had to go to the office, but I was distracted most of the time. I texted Olivia not to leave the house until we have further conversation. I rushed home after wrapping up my work. As I reached home, Olivia's car was in the driveway. I somehow sensed that things were not going to be the same when I walked through that door, but I wasn't expecting the surprise that I got. When I stepped through our front door, I could tell something was different about our house. I was never one to pay attention to the little details. That was always Olivia's thing, but something was off. Olivia was sitting at our kitchen table. She looked stiff and uncomfortable. The look of someone who had news she didn't want to share. That's when I noticed 3 packed suitcases behind her. She wasn't saying anything at first, which made me very uncomfortable. I don't know if she couldn't figure out the words to say or if she was just waiting for me to say something first. Every second felt like an hour as I asked her about the packed suitcases. That's when she started crying. She tried to tell me that she got an opportunity she couldn't pass on and was leaving to chase her dream. Her voice was trembling and she couldn't make eye contact with me. That told me everything she was saying was a lie. I could feel my blood boiling the more she lied. I'm usually mild-tempered, but something about the person I trusted the most lying to me set me off. Out of frustration, I slammed my hand on the table and yelled at her to speak the truth. During our 2-year marriage, this was the only time I had ever raised my voice to Olivia, but being lied to can bring out the worst in a person. That's when she came out with the truth. I almost wish I had never had asked to hear it, because I can still remember the pain to this day. My wife was leaving me for one of the businessmen she met at the bar, some millionaire that lived upstate. It is 5 years since then. Of course, it was a tough period for me, but the details of that are not relevant. I sold the house we were living in and moved into a nicer neighborhood. I'm now married to a beautiful and ambitious woman named Kara, and we're expecting a baby. Life is good, so why talk about the ex? For the past few years, Olivia has been nothing but a distant memory. But a few days back, I got a text from her that she was back in town and wants to meet. I ignored her messages, but she pinged me nonstop, saying that it was something urgent. Here's the thing. I don't want her back in my life, but I'm also wondering what this urgent thing is that she wants to talk about. What should I do? Honestly, I'm not sure it's a good idea to meet her again. She did you real dirty. I mean, she cheated on you with someone who had a ton of money and then decided to leave you for them. Or, sorry, she left you for the money. I'm not sure digging up the past is ever a good thing. Sometimes we have to leave the dead in the dirt. Update 1. Thanks for the suggestions, everyone. I know it's been a few months since I posted an update. Kara gave birth to our baby boy a few weeks ago, and we're adjusting to being first-time parents. As some of you suggested, Olivia may want to meet up because she wanted to apologize. I could give her the benefit of the doubt and agreed to meet up with her for a coffee. When I first arrived at the coffee shop, I saw her sitting in a booth waiting. She smiled as soon as she noticed me. For a brief moment, I thought some of you may be right, that maybe all she wanted was forgiveness. At first, she tried to play it off cool. She made small talk like anyone would when they were catching up with someone they hadn't spoken to in years. But I noticed she was up to her old games. As she talked about moving back into town, she would look for excuses to move closer to me or to touch my hand. I would inch away or brush her off, but I could tell she thought she could win me over. I moved back from her and told her to stay put in her limits. I could see her cheeks turn pink as she realized I wouldn't crack. She said she missed me. I knew this wasn't true. It took her an instant to decide to leave our marriage when an established millionaire paid her an ounce of attention. Not once over the past 5 years has she tried to reach out to me. That's when I told her to cut the crap and tell me the reason for her urgent meeting request. She started crying, and for the first time I didn't feel bad seeing her in pain. This was just a sliver of the emotional pain she caused me when she left. She said that she knew that she betrayed me and I hate her, but I was the only person I can turn to. She was right, I did hate her. But I still cared for her as a person, as weird as that sounds. A part of me did not want to know what her deal was and why it involved me. I asked her what did she want from me. She asked me to lend her some money, $5,000 to be exact. You see, her millionaire boyfriend never put a ring on her finger. When he started hooking up with his hot new assistant, he gave Olivia the boot. Now, she doesn't have a dime to her name. It seems like karma caught up with her after all. I don't know why I was so surprised that this was the reason she asked to meet up. When we were together, I was too blinded by love. But once she left, I realized what purpose I served her. You see, she never actually noticed me when we were kids, but that night at the bar, she overheard my friends and me catching up. She heard all about the good job I was starting in my new condo. Hell, after a few beers, I probably even let it slip how much money I was making. She only saw dollar signs and a man simple enough to fall for charm. Of course, I retrospect all these only after she left. I had no intention of giving her a loan, but I was curious what she had to say. So I asked her the reason she needed the money. She filled me in on all the details of where her life was now. When her relationship ended, she came back, hoping to stay with her parents until she figured things out. Obviously, she hadn't been in touch with her parents all these years, so she didn't know that they sold their house and moved into a one-bedroom beachside apartment. Olivia told me that she needed the money to restart her life, rent an apartment, etc. She also wanted some money to cover expenses while working on a painting that she hoped to sell to a trendy gallery in the city. Of course, I asked her if the gallery had agreed to commission her. She mentioned wanting to focus on art during our marriage, but during the whole 2 years she never created a single painting or anything. To be fair, I didn't know if she could paint or not. I have never seen a piece of her work. Olivia admitted that she hadn't spoken to anyone from the gallery. She was planning on creating a piece that she could sell to them. This was typical for Olivia, thinking that she could just walk into a place and immediately impress them just because she existed. Immediately, I denied her. I wasn't rude about it. I didn't say any of the cruel thoughts that were invading my head. Instead, I told her the truth that I had just had a kid and I was paying off a mortgage. I didn't have that kind of money to spare right now. She bargained for $3,000, but I didn't give in. She began to explain how she was worried about having nowhere to stay. The bar she used to work at was under new management and didn't need any help. Whatever she was trying to sell, I wasn't buying it. If she wanted to explore herself, she could do it with her own money. I told her that I supported her during our marriage, but she'd decided to explore her way into a millionaire's bed. I'll never forget how her expression changed in an instant. She went from an innocent damsel in distress to a cold-hearted villain. This is when she told me, "You owe me, actually. I didn't come for anything during the divorce. I should have gotten alimony or at least half of the money you got from selling the house, but I let you off easy. That can change, though." That was enough for me. I might have thrown a few curse words her way. Who wouldn't? But that was the last time I would give her the benefit of the doubt. When I got home, I blocked her on all social media apps. The thing is, I'm worried about what she will do next. Can she come after me for money after all these years? Should I talk to a lawyer? I don't know, guys. Any suggestions would be helpful. Thanks. I think you're totally good. She can't come at you for anything, OP. I can't believe she had the guts to come to you for money. That's delusional behavior. And then to threaten you that she would legally come after you? That totally came from a place of fear because she's desperate. Obviously, everything she said before that was a load of BS. It's scary to think that someone can look you in the eyes and tell you endless lies and pretend to be someone they're not. And she almost had you with the tears. Stay sharp, OP. Update 2. Hey everyone. I'm sorry I've taken so long to update you guys. Life has been insanely busy for us lately. But I know that's not why you're keeping up with my posts. You're probably wondering what happened after my exchange with Olivia. Well, I'm happy to say absolutely nothing. She was all biting with no bark. Just to be on the safe side, I did speak with a lawyer. Well, sort of. My colleague's brother works for a law firm and he lets me know that in this state, an ex-partner can't go after alimony after the original divorce case has been settled. Even if she did get a lawyer, she didn't have a case to move forward with. Plus, she doesn't have the money to fight a case. I'll give her props for trying, but she won't fool me again. I blocked her number as well as all social media apps. Of course, living in a small town does make it impossible to avoid hearing about someone completely. As much as you try to distance yourself from them, someone else will eventually bring up what they're doing. I was told she moved upstate to stay with one of her old high school friends. Luckily, she won't be around to sink her claws into my life anymore. If she wants to play games, they'll have to be on someone else's board. As for me, we're preparing for summer vacation. Kara and I have both booked a few weeks off in August. We've put a down payment on an RV and are going to travel around the state visiting different campsites. We might be crazy about hitting the road with a baby, but we're excited about the journey. Update 3. Wow, I can't believe how many people have been keeping up with this story. It sounds like many of you had to deal with your own version of Olivia too. I was finished with this post after my last update, but something happened that I thought you guys might be interested in hearing about. Remember how I mentioned that we planned a road trip in the RV? We spent the last 3 weeks traveling around and exploring the state. I was surprised by how good of a traveler our baby was. So, on our way back, we stopped at a diner just off the highway. It didn't look like the nicest place from the outside, but it was convenient. Kara and I were both too hungry at this point to be picky about where we ate. Once we were seated and placed our orders, I excused myself to use the washroom. As I was washing my hands, I heard some commotion outside the doors. It sounded like a manager schooling one of the employees. I heard the manager say it was the third complaint they have gotten about the employee in that 1 week. Apparently she gave a 4-year-old hot sauce instead of ketchup. Then I heard a voice that sounded very familiar. I couldn't put my finger on how I knew it. It was Olivia, apologizing to the manager for the last chance, promising to mend her ways. Okay, in any other situation, I would have waited outside the washroom for the conversation to be over. An employee getting scolded by their boss doesn't need any more humiliation added on top, but this was something I wanted to see. As I was drying my hands, I could hear her manager calling her irresponsible and lazy. He also rebuked her for keeping her section unattended and dirty, giving her the last warning. I opened the washroom door and stepped into the restaurant hallway at the exact same time the manager warned her that it was a last warning, and one more mistake, she would be out of a job. The look on her face at this moment was something I will never forget. I'm probably the last person she wanted to see when her manager said those words. I didn't say anything to her, although her manager did seem slightly embarrassed that a customer overheard him tell off an employee. He came to our table to apologize and offered Kara and me a dessert on the house. Now, I wasn't expecting much out of that little diner, but getting free pie and seeing my ex-wife being held accountable for her behavior was well worth it. I'll have to give that place a good review later. I guess this will be the last of my Olivia updates. My family and career deserve all of my focus moving forward. I guess she got what she deserved. Right where she belongs. That's extremely satisfying. Now she actually has to work for something in her life. What do you make of this? Do you have your own little Olivia story? Share it with us in the comments below. Wayward Spouse said I am overreacting to the affair partner. So it's been 6 weeks since D-Day. Had a mental breakdown, etc., and I've informed him about the steps to reconciliation, one of which involves no communication with the affair partner. For background, wayward spouse is male 44. I'm female 34, and affair partner is a coworker, female 26. We've been married for 14 years. My wayward spouse insists that I need to do some internal work for allowing affair partner to have so much control over my life that I had a breakdown. This is despite me insisting the following. This is a coworker. This is a coworker who knows me, I've socialized with, and I've helped her get a job in the company. Affair partner knew he was married. Affair partner felt comfortable staying in the marital bed and coming to the marital house. Wayward spouse gave affair partner a credit card and gifts. I confronted both separately on the excessive flirting, and they both insisted nothing was going on. They arranged dates on my birthday while I had to be in the hospital with my dying relative. He said that your feelings and weakness in being broken by a random girl is what should concern you, and that I need to do some internal work. Now, am I going crazy? This isn't some random girl that wayward spouse has cut communication with and will never see. It's a literal coworker who knew me, who socialized with me while betraying the ethics of friendship. This is what hurts so much. So can someone tell me, am I overreacting? Update. Affair partner wants to apologize. The affair partner reached out wanting to explain herself and apologize. A few weeks ago, I would have given anything for this kind of closure, but now I've reached my own level of closure. This is without carrying out any attacks on wayward husband and affair partner because I was so busy focusing on myself that I didn't want to let this issue take any more of my life. I'm disgusted by her actions, and I don't even want to think such people exist. So, I don't think an apology will help my closure any further. Has anyone accepted an apology from the affair partner? Did it make a difference in your recovery? Edit. It sounds cliche, but I focused on myself via reconnecting with myself. I realized I was so busy supporting my wayward husband that I didn't focus on the things that bring me happiness. My healing was aided by a month of daily family and community activities. The more people you meet, the more you realize you don't have to accept this behavior. My self-worth was pretty bad the last few months, and since my mother had passed a few years ago, there's no one really pouring into me. So when a top global company reached out for a role, it gave me that external boost that even though my current managers or wayward husband didn't acknowledge my achievements, there are people who do. I'm not sure of the correct term for people who thrive on attention and secrecy, but intuition tells me that now the affair is in the open, that I don't care and I'm focused on myself. That affair partner wants to pull me back. She knew me. She knew we were married and still went ahead with it for months. It sounds like your husband's got a PhD in blame shifting 101 with a minor in gaslighting techniques. I mean, who knew allowing someone to frolic around in your marital bed and swipe your credit card was just a sign of internal weakness? Must have missed that chapter in the marriage handbook. But hey, at least your husband's got a knack for creative problem solving. Instead of dealing with his own infidelity, he's decided to diagnose you with a case of allowing a affair partner to have too much control. Talk about deflecting responsibility like a pro. And as for the affair partner's sudden urge to apologize, well, forgive me if I'm not breaking out the champagne just yet. It's like someone setting your house on fire and then offering you a bucket of water. A little too little, a little too late. Update. Affair partner's apology and karma. I think it's been 3 months since D-Day and when my world turned apart, but boy does it feel like longer. Affair partner reached out wanting to apologize, but I declined. She still found a way to send me a letter. In it, she admits that she deliberately targeted wayward husband, who was her mentor, for fun, and to see that she could steal a man. To give you an idea of the level of intent, I am fairly known in my industry, so my birthday is public. She had hounded him, even using work emails, to set the first date on my birthday. I was horrified by the malice and that these kinds of people walk amongst us. Funny enough, within 2 weeks of that first encounter, wayward husband was fired from his executive position. Affair partner was also fired from her managerial position a few weeks later. Wayward husband finally saw the light from his firing. It turns out being distracted like that can cost you your job when you make a mistake, and no job means no respect from his peers, so his ego took a hit. Wayward husband also tried to inform me that affair partner was devastated as her work meant everything to her and she was supporting her family. Ironic given the action she took to jeopardize her career. I'm surprised he still tried to make me empathize for her loss when I have a life sentence of this pain that I didn't consent to. Affair partner is currently working in the worst area of town. Senior positions aren't readily accessible when your current company fired you for unethical reasons. With a 3-hour daily commute. She's also on half the salary and in an entry-level position and blacklisted from managerial positions for 5 years. They both lost their homes too and are facing health problems. The funny thing is, I was so ashamed by the affair, I never told anyone. I had mentioned to his family that wayward husband strangled me and became violent, but they didn't do anything to hold him accountable. I will never forget that feeling of loneliness and wished my own parents were alive to protect me. So losing their jobs, homes, and wealth was totally their own karma. To those in the deep abyss of hell, you're so much more resilient than you can imagine. Gather evidence, expose the affair, and heal. One day you'll emerge from this so much brighter. Sending you all love, strength, and hope. Now a couple quick reactions from the community before moving on. First up, blocker. She wants to come across as apologetic. She isn't. She is just apologizing for show. She knew what she was doing and still dropped her drawers for a married man. She doesn't deserve your time. Someone else adds in, it's more than that. It's likely a power trip designed to try and exert power over OP. It's a total dick move. I mean, talk about a masterclass of self-sabotage. Deliberately targeting your mentor for a little fun and then ending up in the worst part of town with a 3-hour commute? That's like going from penthouse to pavement faster than you can say career suicide. And as for your husband's finally seeing the light, well, nothing like a good old-fashioned firing to knock some sense into a wandering eye. It's like they say, when life gives you lemons, it's probably because you've been squeezing oranges behind your spouse's back. But hey, at least you're emerging from the ashes stronger than ever. It's like watching a phoenix rise from the flames. Except instead of fiery feathers, you've got a backbone of steel and a heart full of resilience. So here's to you, taking back control and showing those two clowns that karma's got a wicked sense of humor. Cheers to brighter days ahead. What about you? Have you ever accepted an apology from an affair partner? Next up, who knew OP's wife's art class would become a canvas for infidelity? Why I will leave my wife of 10 years. Hey folks, just wanted to tell my, male 41, story that led to me separating from my wife, female 35, 4 weeks ago. I don't think I need any advice since I stopped trying to understand her behavior. Still, I thought I'd at least share. Maybe someone out there can take away something from it. We were together for 14 years, married 10, 4 kids. The relationship seemed to work so effortlessly. At times it seemed, and probably was, too good to be true. No screaming matches, even after the confession of cheating, equal share of caring for the kids, household, frequent date nights, etc. I was living my dream and couldn't believe how good I had it. New Year's, couldn't attend due to sickness. I get hit sideways by a freight train. My wife slept with a man from her art course and immediately confessed that very night. She confessed feelings too, as they had texted for quite some time before. I never expected this. I never saw it coming. I can't describe the shock. Soon after, hysterical bonding ensued and the naive belief to let this be a beginning to a stronger relationship than ever before. The following weeks began to show that A, I took almost all of the initiative to repair the relationship, and B, she never showed true remorse. C, she had trouble cutting out a affair partner. Weeks of unbearable, excruciating grief. Lots of ideas from my side to alleviate pressure for her in child-related and household topics. I always thought we had a great relationship that was sometimes under some pressure by the responsibilities around the kids, but never this way. After some weeks of focusing on saving the marriage, I suddenly didn't know whether I could forgive the incident in the long run and communicated my boundaries regarding affair partner and infidelity in general. This brings us to the final straw. It all collapsed as she had visited him again. She confessed immediately again. Crying, she described how hard she fought to resist the urge to revisit her affair, but how she couldn't stop it. A sizable sting of grief met a sense of relief on that day. The question I was mulling over for months had answered itself. I separated, and thankfully, it seemed like we were in agreement about how divorce and the child arrangements will play out. This week, she is severely wavering between being distant but also crying and telling me divorce is a mistake, and also making me to cuddle her in bed, that she is mentally unstable and that there can be no reconciliation. She also, for the first time, excused herself for her behavior. Notwithstanding how much I longed to hear stuff like that, I just know deep inside I have got to soldier on. I will not terminate my plans of getting my own place, moving out, and moving on. The grief that remains, upon closer look, is also heavily focused on the fact that I will not see my kids every day anymore, and the only life plan I ever had has been shattered to pieces. I probably will never know what happened to her. She couldn't really explain what was bothering her about our marriage. I figured she lost feelings for me somewhere along the way and never communicated. She described her new guy as not relationship material, not that I should care anymore, as just a crutch to garner some temporary good feelings during this time. This ice-cold approach is something very unusual if I think about the version of her I got to know back then. As I'm feverishly looking for a flat to move into, she is still visiting the guy. I'm relieved this doesn't bother me too much at this point. I hope everything works out well for our kids, as she showed some serious signs of being severely overwhelmed with childcare in the last months, bordering to street burnout, despite my efforts to take up as much of the slack as I can. She declined my offer of me reducing my work hours and taking custody of the kids while she switches to full-time. Her partying habits grew different as well. She always loved to attend parties and have fun. However, drinking until blackout became common every weekend the last months. I hope me leaving doesn't result in a downward spiral somehow affecting our kids in any way. Something serious changed in this woman somewhere along the years I stupidly categorized as good years. And like I already mentioned, I will, from now on, try to stop analyzing her behavior. Now let's get a couple community comments. First up, one thing to remember: even though she is the mother of your children, do not set yourself on fire to keep her warm. She can't handle childcare. Too bad. Her car broke down? Too bad. She is burnt out on her days with the kids? F her. You only worry about your time unless it's an emergency. Only communicate with a family app. You're not doing this to punish her. You're doing it so you don't punish yourself. You're no longer her husband. Let's face it, this was an exit affair. She had an affair, so you would be the one to end it. The OP replies, "It's too funny that her car broke down was one of the instances in the past months where I suddenly became important to her again. Also, what the people I spoke to couldn't comprehend was that I was bending backwards to give her time to pursue going to parties and keeping up her social life with her girlfriends, also tending to the children while she slept hungover, and her still being unsatisfied. I can't understand it." Another community member adds, "No more second or third chances. Move half of your money to a separate account, gather as much proof as you can, get her to admit it while you were recording her on your phone. Save your evidence to see 3 to 4 of the best lawyers. In your area, listen to your lawyer. Tell old friends and family what she did so she doesn't tell everybody with a bad person." The OP replies, "Thankfully, up until now, splitting assets shouldn't be a problem, as we both do not possess a substantial amount of assets. Still, I already lawyered up and gotten warned about possible sudden changes in behavior with these kinds of wives. You're right about the storytelling. Her parents and brother know the full story and can't comprehend it either." Looks like we've got ourselves a front row seat to the What the Hell Happened show, starring your wife, featuring a special guest appearance with her midlife crisis. I mean, who knew marriage could turn into a game of musical chairs with feelings? 4 kids, 14 years, and suddenly she's out here doing the relationship cha-cha with some guy from her art class? And let's not forget the Oscar-worthy performance of "I'm sorry, but I just couldn't resist visiting my affair partner again," a classic move in the playbook of infidelity. Right up there with "It's not you, it's me," and "I promise I'll change." But hey, at least you're not sticking around for the encore. Moving out, moving on, and leaving her to figure out her own mess? Now that's what I call taking back control of your life. Update. I didn't think I would update my post this soon. However, another significant event has shattered my world. To make it short, I found out on Saturday that my, at times, best friend of 16 years, which I co-founded our beer league hockey team with, is already aggressively trying to flirt by text with my soon-to-be ex-wife. I know we're separated, but this has a backstory, as my soon-to-be ex-wife reported him to me because of inappropriate flirting messages several years ago already. Back then, after a big fight, he apologized profusely, and we made up in the end. Still, a bad feeling always lingered in the back of my mind. Also, the separation is really fresh, and when confronted with the newest incident, he lied to my face about it. Afterwards, he pointed out that everything is just for fun, and that nothing physical ever happened. I'm neither convinced nor eager to put up with his kind of fun. So in short, I will give up my dearest hobby of many years, until I'm finding another team or a new hobby altogether, as well as a long friendship. This sucks so much. I can't believe a double whammy like this is happening in such a short time frame. I also can't fathom what I did to them that causes them to deliberately hurt me like that and kicking me while I'm down. I probably will have to work on my personality to not attract, enable people like this in my future life. My soon-to-be ex-wife, by the way, played along with him and didn't do anything to stop it, therefore reassuring my decision to divorce and stay course. As far as she is concerned, after some days of shaky behavior between visiting a affair partner but also crying and trying to persuade me to not divorce, seems to flourish with the affair partner. She seems really upbeat and happy, but thankfully not in the annoying push-it-in-your-face kind of way. I think she doesn't care anymore, and that's fine, as I shouldn't either. I now have to somehow mentally process 2 earth-shattering shocks in the matter of 1 month. I haven't been crying since the latest one, but experienced a short feeling of surreality. I feel numb, and my life doesn't seem real at this point, as if I'm walking through a dream or nightmare. Very strange, yet not as painful as the original D-Days with my soon-to-be ex-wife. Now here's to picking up the pieces and somehow surviving once again. Edit. I was finally able to move out by June 1st. Until then, some more couch surfing at friends and relatives. I think permanent physical separation will come in really handy. Now for a community feedback. I feel your pain, OP. 18 months ago, my ex had an exit affair with a guy from her car club, so I didn't lose her to a friend like yours, but the thing that really sucked was that all of her friends sided with her. They were pretending to host her for Girls' Day Out events when she was actually at his place, after the divorce, ghosted me, and now my kids report to me how the affair partner integrated himself into my life like I never existed. Sometimes, in my dark moments, I feel like I was photoshopped out of existence, as I have no contact with any of those friends who I found out the hard way weren't ever my friends. It makes you question reality at times. Spend a lot more time with the gym, eat healthy, do your therapy, and keep grinding. Who needs enemies when you've got friends like that, right? It's like they took the bro code and set it on fire with a flamethrower just for kicks. But hey, at least you got a moving date on the calendar, right? Nothing says fresh start like a new zip code and a couch to crash on at your friends' places. So here's to you, OP, navigating through the murky waters of divorce drama like a pro. Keep hitting the gym, eating your greens, and reminding yourself that reality might be stranger than fiction, but at least you're the hero of your own story. Cheers to picking up the pieces and surviving the double whammy of friendship and fidelity fails. You've got this. How did you get through your worst days after a breakup or a divorce? Share your stories with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.